Welcome to part 3 of Total Recall. Today we're going in Photoshop. I'm going to show you how to cut me out of the background and we're going to make a whole new background. Hey guys, welcome to Phlearn. My name's Aaron Nace. You can find me on Twitter at AKNacer. Guess what? There's a new something behind me because we rearranged the studio, so we wanted to make it look cooler. And this is the wall that everyone built a couple weeks ago, and it's nice. And now you guys get to enjoy it too. And if you don't want to look at me during the tutorial, you have something pretty to look at behind me. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Today we're going into Photoshop. We've got a lot to do, so I'm just going to jump right into it. And by the end of this series of episodes, we're going to make this Total Recall poster. It's going to be totally awesome. So let's go ahead and do this thing. Okay, first thing, I've already kind of put everything together. We've got me in the background. This is the aspect ratio that I want the final image to be. And I've brought in a bunch of these images as well. I'm going to give you guys these images and things like that to download if you want them, and you can kind of work on them yourselves as well. Okay, so first thing I want to do is cut me out of the background. So we're going to zoom in, and there are fast ways to do this and there are slow ways to do it. I'm going to show you guys a fast way. It's not the way I use most often, but since the edge is going to be a little bit blurred, it's not going to be a huge deal in this case. All right, let's go ahead and go to our magnetic lasso tool because I'm relatively clean on the background, meaning that like there's not a whole lot of distractions. It's just we have a really nice edge we can work with. And a magnetic lasso tool is going to work well when you have a very clean edge. So if you're photographing on a white or a gray backdrop, the magnetic lasso tool a lot of the time will work for cutting someone out. If someone's like on a forest or something like that background, it's not going to work. All right, here you can see sometimes it'll get caught up. You can use the delete key, delete or backspace, and that'll just kind of erase the last one it made, and you can kind of start over with that. All right, so you can see it's not a perfect tool, but we can go in and kind of help it out and clean it up later. Basically with this tool, you just click right at your edge and just follow it all along your image until you're happy with what you got. So we'll go along the top. It's not going to do a great job there. It's not really going to do a great job along my hair either, but that's not a huge deal because we're going to take care of that in just a minute. There we go, and we'll have it follow along the contour of my exceptionally manly nose. We're gonna bring it, there we go, over the lips. And this is so weird using pictures of me because it's, you know, I'm just looking at myself. Normally I like to make fun of the people in the images, so when it's me, actually I don't hurt anyone's feelings, so I guess that's pretty good. We'll go down the collar, here we go, and all the way to the end. There we go. Let's double click and then we have a selection there. Okay, now what we're going to do is just load that selection into a layer mask. So I've got my layer, I'm just going to click on my layer mask button, and there we go. It's completely cut out of its background. It's not perfect yet, so we're going to go in here and clean it up. The first thing I want to do right up at the very top, I'm just going to grab now the regular lasso tool and just select out like my head there, because the magnetic lasso tool will try to follow contour, but when you reach the edge of a document, it'll mess up like that. So I'm going to fill that with white. So Alt or Option Delete is going to fill with my foreground color, and we're going to do the same thing down here as well. All right, there we go, and we'll fill that with white. So you can see the jacket actually worked pretty well. Some of these areas it needs to be done a little bit better. So I'm going to go in with the lasso tool now and fix those areas. And the reason I'm using the lasso tool here is because I don't want to have the outline look too different. Like I don't want to go in with a soft edge brush right now and kind of fix that up. The reason is I'm going to just wind up changing the outline, the whole, like the edge. The edge is too sharp right now. I'm going to wind up changing the edge as a whole. So I want all of the edge to kind of start off being a relatively hard edge, and then I can make it a little bit softer as it goes by. Okay. One thing you guys can do, if you want to just kind of like shift click back and forth with your layer mask, this is going to turn your layer mask off and on real quick, and it'll give you a decent idea of how much it's actually doing. Another thing you can do, it's kind of cool, you can go to Window and then down here to Mask, which is somewhere, oh yeah, it's in the Properties dialog now. Okay, you got to go to your mask. You can change your density right here, and what that's going to do is it's just going to kind of allow you to see what was behind the backdrop a little bit. And this is good because you can always bring that back up, but see, it's allowing me to see my my layer mask or what's behind it a little bit better. So I can like select out my lip and then, you know, fill that back in with white if I wanted to do that. Or you just kind of shift click there turn it off and on, and then kind of guess at what you're doing there. All right, there we go. And this doesn't have to be perfect right now. If you're interested in cutting people out and doing it really well, we definitely have whole episodes on that. This is just kind of something that we need to do for this episode. All right. There we go. And I'm just filling in with black and with white to kind of make this stuff either visible or not visible. And apparently it cut off a large section of my head there. So this is why the magnetic lasso tool is not perfect, but a lot of the time it'll get the job done well enough anyway. All right, there we go. And let's just fill that in. Okay. Now, onto my hair. I'm not going to try to get this too incredibly perfect using the tools that I've got here. Basically, the reason is I'm going to refine this edge, and I'm going to wind up adding some motion blur and everything like that to this image anyway, so it's not a huge deal to get that perfect. But if you did, you could go in and use like, well, let's just see. You could use something like a magic wand tool and select that. Let's bring the tolerance down. I'm going to wind up making it a good selection anyway, even though I said I wasn't going to. I'm going to select out the inverse and then invert my selection by hitting Shift-Command-I. There we go, and that's going to allow me to select out the hair just a little bit better. All right, so you could do something like that and keep on refining it if you wanted to, but again, we're going to give it blur, so it's not a huge deal. Okay, so we've got me cut out from my background. That's a big hurdle already crossed. Now the main part of this episode is going to be kind of arranging everything in the backdrop, and this is actually going to be quite a bit of work because we're bringing all these separate elements in, and we're trying to recreate this movie poster here. Let's just bring in this movie poster, make it a little bit bigger, and you can see that you've got all these different elements. Some are light, some are dark, and things like that, and they're all kind of combining together to get you this effect of the background. So we're doing the same thing, but I'm using all photos that I've taken. So, we don't have like computer renderings and all that kind of stuff like that in the background. We're using just regular photos. So we're going to start compiling this background together, and I've got a bunch of different photos that we're going to use to do so. Okay, so we're going to start off just kind of like moving things around, and eventually I'm going to be bringing in, me over top of this sort of thing. But right now I just kind of want to see, what's happening here with my image. And we're going to kind of like move things around and shrink and push and pull things. A lot of this stuff is just going to be like, organizing these layers and kind of moving them around and playing with geometry and playing with perspective a little bit. All right, so let's put a layer mask on this. And there we go. We're just going to layer mask out that building. Like, we don't really need that to be there. So it's going to be gone now. And we'll just magic wand that out as well. All right. We have another building. This is kind of cool. We're actually going to rotate this one this way here and bring this in. And it took me, I would say, probably 20 or 30 minutes when I was first creating this image. It probably took me 20 or 30 minutes to kind of figure out where I wanted to put everything. So, and these are like totally random pictures. Like this is, for instance, this is a picture inside of the Art Institute in Chicago. This is of a ceiling, but we're going to make it look like a wall. So you can kind of play with some perspective here as you're working in Photoshop. I mean, that's like the fun of it, right? Is to get to be able to create this stuff that just doesn't exist at all. All right, so we're bringing that in. Next we have a train and a bridge. I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do with that. This is actually pretty cool. Let's make me invisible here. My bridge, I'm going to flip this horizontally. We're going to rotate this around. There we go. And then I want to cut this out. The reason I'm doing this is because we have, in our original image, we have this like bridge thing over here. So I just kind of wanted something, that was going to be relatively similar in look. I am going to stretch this out a little bit. Holding down Alt or Option, you can grab these corners and kind of pull them and move each of your corners independently, which is going to allow you to change perspective pretty easily. Well, I mean, if it looks bad, it's not that easy, but if it looks good, then it's easy and it works well. Okay, now we're just going to use my polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to grab this. By the way, the original edit, when I did this movie poster, it probably took me, I would say 3 or 4 hours to do, and I'm going to try to do it in much less time than that. So don't be surprised if it's like, whoa, he's going super fast. I'm trying to really do it in a short amount of time. Okay, so we've got the bridge there. I just made a layer mask to kind of cut that out. Next thing I want to do is I want to put this train on that bridge. And it's like, well, it's not the right perspective or anything like that. It's not a huge deal though, because you can change that sort of thing in Photoshop. Holding a combination of Shift, Option, and Command, you can grab these corners and then change your perspective. So I'm going to do that. We're going to rotate right around. There we go. This is not... I'm making it look super easy, I bet. Well, maybe I'm not, I don't know. But this can be a little bit difficult. So if you're like, what? That would take me forever. This is not like the easiest thing in the world, but you can make a train look like it's on that bridge. And basically I'm just trying to match up these parallel lines, continuing to make them parallel, you know, from the train to the bridge. All right, so this is, I would say, the... filled that with the wrong color. I would say this is not like a super hard thing, but we're still like not even really worried about color or anything like that. I'm just grabbing these elements and kind of pulling them together. So this is, I don't know, in the difficulty of everything, I would say this is like a 4 or a 5. But it's, I don't know, it's the fun part. We're gonna make this look like it's a building. Actually, this is like a roof and some kind of cool superstructure here. I'm gonna make this look like it's a building behind this other building, and I'm gonna do so by, you know, kind of like pushing and pulling and stretching all my corners and edges here, and there we go. Making it kind of look like it's this weird structure that's kind of, you know, coming out of the side of that building. All right, it might be a little hard to think of this. It's not like I did all this stuff like in 2 seconds, like nearly as quick as I'm doing it now. It took me a while to do. The only reason I'm able to do it a little faster now is because I've already done it. All right, let's just put a layer mask on there and invert that area, that layer mask. So you can see when that's on there, it's gonna look just like some, you know, cool building structure there. All right, and this is the modern wing of the Art Institute of Chicago. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna flip this vertically, flip it vertically, and we're going to stretch this around, and this is going to kind of make up a ceiling here. All right, and what I'm going to go grab my magic wand tool. Let's just select out an area like this, and I'm going to load this into my layer mask. There we go. All right, now what I want to do is, well, let's make sure we get this too. What I want to be sure I do with my layer mask is I want to be sure that the perspective of this roof here matches the perspective of this building here. And that's going to help it sell it as like, you know, something that actually is this architectural shape. You know, everything kind of converges to the same point. And so as I'm doing this, that's the only way these are going to look anywhere near real. I mean, they're not going to look incredibly real, but that's the only way they're going to look any bit better than just something that's totally random, is if you can figure out, you know, how to get your perspective to look a little bit more like, you know, everything's kind of coming together. So that was the idea there. The train thing that we have going on here, there we go, this train thing, wherever it is, let's just put that right over there, arranging my layers. Yeah, that's the only kind of like miss thing that, you know, has nothing to do with the perspective of everything else in the image. But the reason I kept that in there is because it's basically the same thing. You can see here, like we've got a continuous perspective here, same up here, down there, even these elements in the background. And this thing just kind of comes out of nowhere. So because that does that in the original, we're going to do it in this photo as well. So there we go. We've got our background, and we're starting to make everything come together. Next thing we need to do is kind of figure out what we want as a background color, and I'm gonna have to individually color everything here in the background elements as well. So we're gonna start off, I'm gonna make a new layer. This will go down below everything else, and let's just fill it with something that's, you know, relatively close to white. Something like that color works for me. Okay, now what we're gonna do, let me check my time here. All right, 14 minutes. We're gonna do this, and then the next episode we're gonna do a whole nother different thing. So this is gonna be coloring the background. This is actually really cool. So this guy here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab an adjustment layer. We're gonna go to Hue and Saturation, and I'm gonna hit this Colorize button. I'm gonna hit Option Command G, and that's going to clip this layer to my background. What that's doing is basically this hue saturation. I'm coloring only that layer. So I'm going to color all of these layers, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to change other things about them too. Okay, and we want this kind of like a bluish green color. Let's go over here to our bluish green. We're going to change the saturation so it's really not that saturated. And again, this is kind of like what I'm doing, matching the color there. And if it's not perfect, it's not a huge deal, but you can do this and copy it to multiple layers. So that's what I'm going to do here. Hold Alt or Option and then click and drag. You can just copy that layer onto another one. And I'm going to hit Option Command G to clip that layer onto this guy as well. So now this is being colored basically the same. All right, and we're gonna see, like, maybe, you know, I want to bring down my lightness a little bit, and maybe this needs to be a little bit more on the blue side, maybe a tiny bit more saturated. All right, there we go. So I'm basically, you know, trying to match a decent bit to what's going on here in the background image. Okay, Alt or Option again. Let's just copy that again and clip it. So you can see, if I got my fingers on the keyboard shortcuts here, it doesn't take too long to do that over and over again. Okay, so things like this background layer, what we're going to do with this, I'm going to grab an adjustment layer on here. We're going to grab our levels, clip that as well, and I'm going to take my darks and just kind of like bring that way up. So that's, you know, it's going to be quite a bit brighter. Basically, it's going to show like it's a little bit far away. That's what it's going to look like. You can see that, like that, it looks like it's right close to that building. Now it looks like it's a bit farther away. I'm going to do the same thing with our other background layer here. Let me find it real quick. I don't have the time to be super organized here because I'm trying to do this in a hurry so you guys can get a lot learned quickly. And there we go. We're going to do the same thing with that background layer there. And I'm basically looking at this layer here as kind of my guide as to what's going on in the image. Okay, the next thing I want to do, let's go ahead and group all these layers that are going to be making up everything in my background image. And as I group these, I'm going to create a new layer here, and I'm going to grab a color from my background. So we'll just grab, you know, something like this color. I'm going to grab my gradient tool, and with a radial gradient, I'm just going to kind of go out like this. And now I have a nice radial gradient that I can kind of move using the forward or backwards step here, holding down Command, open and close brackets. So you can see I can move this up or down here and kind of like figure out where I want it to be. And that way I'm able to kind of like create some atmosphere. So let me just kind of bring that up, and I can, you know, create some atmosphere, maybe do it here, and use my move tool to kind of just move this around, be like, okay, you know, maybe we want some of that there. I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate that again, and then we're going to do the same thing. There we go. Kind of moving it over there to make this look like it's a little farther away as well. All the time I'm trying to keep in mind that, like, eventually we just want this effect behind me. You know, we want me to kind of like look like I'm fading away to these different colors. You know, all this stuff is chipping behind me. So that's the only really important thing that we're doing with this background, is eventually we want to be sure we can get there. All right, let's go. You can see I'm just trying to find everything. Normally I might kind of like go in here and rename everything, but right now we just don't have the time. I'm trying to be super quick. So I'm going to bring this area a little bit lighter as well, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command I to invert that layer mask, and I'm just going to paint this visible right over here. So I'm kind of making this area I'm making this area darker as it gets into the corner, and as it gets closer to me, it's getting a little lighter. And I'm doing that for two reasons. One is to like draw attention to me, but you can see here in the original with Colin Farrell, it does the same thing. It gets pretty dark towards the edge and then pretty light back towards, back towards this way again. All right, and we're gonna do the same thing with this train. I'm gonna make this a little bit lighter as well. All right, now you'll notice in this image there's a lot of light coming off to the left here. There's some like yellows and things like that off to the left. There's not much yellow over here going on. So what you can do with that, let's just grab, well, you can just grab your gradient tool really, if you want to get like super simple about it. Grab a color like this and just kind of draw a gradient from the left to the right and kind of just lower the opacity on that. All right, we'll lower that down to about 20%. And then, well, you know what, maybe we'll change this to something like soft light, kind of bring the opacity back up there. and then duplicate that and change it to normal. Soft light's gonna help like the color integrate a little bit more, and then duplicating it is just gonna allow the, allow it to be actually be a little bit lighter. There we go. This is cool. So I'm working pretty quickly here, but we're getting the idea as overall. The next thing I want to do is I need to bring some of that color into the person as well, right? This hue saturation. So I'm going to hold the Alt option, copy that over to me as well. Option Command click to group that. And now what we're going to do is kind of like lower the opacity here a little bit. There we go. I'm going to grab another adjustment layer. We're going to clip that, and I'm going to bring up my brights quite a bit here, especially on my jacket and things like that. There we go. Bring that right under. So what I've done is I've taken the background and colored it one color, and then I'm doing the same thing with myself to get me looking like, more like I belong in this environment. All right, I just need to grab this layer mask and paint black over my face on the layer mask, because I don't want too much of the blue color on my face. I don't mind a little bit of it because I'm, supposed to be colored by the environment here, but I don't want too much of it. Same thing with this. I don't want my face to be too incredibly light as well, especially, down here it's supposed to be a little bit darker anyway. All right, so this is our introduction to getting the first part of our image done, and I think we've done really quite a bit in these last not a long time. Let's just go in here and fix a couple things. Like you can see there's that little bit of light up there is just too much. So we're gonna grab our magnetic lasso tool, make sure I get that area, and layer mask that out as well. All right, and going in here, I would probably do things like, on this layer, for instance, I might clone stamp this over here, so it, just kind of like blocks out this area here that, it got pretty light back there. So I'm just gonna block that out, and from this distance, you're not gonna see any of that anyway. All right. This is great. So that's the first part of our episode, guys. I know it's a lot, but we're going to continue to do a lot. That's the end of part 1, or sorry, this is part 3 of the Total Recall. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll Phlearn you later. Let me know if you have any questions, by the way, because this was a lot, but I think you guys can follow it because Phlearn's been around for a while and we're doing this all the time. Thanks, guys. I'll Phlearn you later.